So we've been really fortunate to put ourselves in a situation where all of our income is earned online, remotely, digital, which means that we can basically be anywhere in the world and travel non-stop. Besides the travel vlogs that we make, we like to add as much value back as we possibly can and share as much information. And one of the ways that we've been doing that over the last couple of years of filming is by creating cost of living videos and just completely opening the book on all of our living costs. We've actually done 10 other cost of living videos from around the world, which I'll link below. Today is going to be about Skopje in North Macedonia, but in this one, I want to mix up the approach a little bit and split it into 3 parts to make it kind of as relevant as possible depending on what you want to get out of it. So I'm a little bit of a spreadsheet nerd, and I've got all of our monthly spend from our time in Skopje on a spreadsheet here in front of me, which is going to help me split this video into 3. The first is just daily items, so just run-of-the-mill items that you might pick up in a bit of a quick fire round, whether you're here for a long time, a short time, or a good time. Second is a breakdown of all of these categories based on the total amount that we spent across the month. And then the third is comparing the total cost to other nomad spots, other popular spots that's been a decent amount of time, like Bali in Indonesia, Zagreb in Croatia, Chiang Mai in Thailand, and Krakow in Poland. So like any city, the price of the day-to-day items vary massively depending on where you are and what the situation is, how commercial it is. But what I've got in front of me is a bunch of items that are probably averaged out based on our experience. Of course, it's all we can really talk about, and it varies a lot for locals because of the access that they have to quality versus what we might not recognize. But small coffees were $1.40, big coffees $1.80. Water was generally about 70 cents. If we went to a bar and had a beer, it was about $1.80 to $2. But then for that same cost, if you went into a store, a market, you could buy a 1 litre beer, which was an absolute treat to have in the fridge for the same cost. But then if you went to that same store, you could buy maybe a half litre for $1.10. Local shops that just whip together some quick paninis and stuff has tended to be about $1.20. But then if you went somewhere a little bit fancier, like a cafe or something, a sandwich is about $3, and even more so for some of the salads were about $3.90. You can see the scale is kind of getting bigger with some of these more expensive items as well. Sit-down meal for 2 tended to be about $8. A taxi across town was only $3.60. Going to the cinema, which we did a few times, we'll mention the other numbers shortly, was $8.50 all up for both of us to go, not including snacks. And then I'll show some footage here. We did a huge grocery haul, and this kind of give you an idea for just if you went to the market like we did and bought a whole bunch of stuff, that this is where you're about going to end up. 3 packets of turkey mince, 3 packets of chicken breast. So this is for a few days, obviously, or a bit longer. Some milk, a whole bunch of vegetables, and some bread, and some Pepsi Max, which is our vice. We shouldn't be drinking sugar-free stuff, but we do. So before we jump into the second category, if you're wondering about the intro when I said that we work online and how that's possible, how you can do the same, we used to work 9-to-5 jobs. We figured all of that out. We've spent the last 2 or 3 years working online, and we published a 220-page book on how it's possible and how anyone can do it. And I'd say it's our biggest achievement, and it's the thing that gives us the most joy every single day, is the messages that we get from people saying, I was unsure, purchased a book, now my partner and I are in X country and we're actually doing it. And it's kind of the most rewarding thing for us. It's a weird thing to talk about because we love sharing information, but it took us 9 months to write it, so we do charge for it. If that's something that you're interested in, I will have it linked below. Accommodation is always the largest cost, and in this situation we actually got quite shafted on our overall costs. Even though Skopje as a whole has very modern, very beautiful, very minimal and nice Airbnbs, at least the ones that we found, and I say the ones is because normally when we would spend a month somewhere, we would book for a month, so that even if it's on Airbnb and you're paying a premium versus a local would get, you get that weekly discount or that monthly discount, which can be 10 to 30%. We had to, well, 1, we stayed longer than we anticipated because of Stacey's laptop getting fixed, and 2, the second place that we booked for a longer term, once we knew that, cancelled on us the day prior because they had a leak. So we had to sort of, we ended up staying in 3 different Airbnbs over our time, and they were all really nice, but our price increasingly went up as it was kind of last minute and not so ideal. So that $1,083 that we spent is, I think, we'll see the comparison and I'll remember myself, was higher than we've spent in most of these countries. But we did really enjoy it, and the internet connections were always really steady. Minimum of 4 megs to 8 on the not so successful wireless setups, and some of the better ones, or the best one in particular, was over 30 megs down. For groceries, we spent $361. We were, if you've seen our day in the life video, you would have seen the supermarkets that we're shopping in were very nice, very modern, and the prices probably did tend to be on a little bit of the higher side, but that is always the case as foreigners when we don't have access to the same local markets or knowing what prices sort of should be for other things. So an important element of that though was water. We didn't drink any of the tap water. Some people said you could, others said maybe don't. And especially when it came to making coffees in the kettle and stuff, you'd see in some of the Airbnbs just all of the white kind of buildup that was going on there. So we stuck with bottled water. And we also spent a lot more this month on groceries than in other places that you'll see at the end in the comparison, because we didn't eat out anywhere near as much, and we were trying to be healthy. So we were cooking 2 of our 3 meals a day, sometimes 3 meals a day that we would actually cook at home. So while those grocery costs are higher, that did make dining out that little bit more difficult, because a lot of the food in Skopje is very much based on that Balkan cuisine. So it's often, it's pastries, it's beans, it's stews, it's kind of like heavier breads, which we were trying to avoid with being healthy. So we did find that we didn't really eat out as frequently as we might once we'd experimented with the local food. And we also didn't have coffees out too frequently either, because like we've mentioned in the other videos, we found it quite difficult to find a flat white, which is what we like to drink. Espressos and everything were easy to come by, but they drink macchiatos, which we know to be quite small, but if you order a large macchiato, it sort of tends to be very similar, but for our taste wasn't really the preference. So 107 is very low in terms of dining out for sure. Entertainment is an interesting category, because when we stay for longer, once we've sort of done our exploring, which in this case was sort of free walking tours and stuff, and just wandering by ourselves, we didn't really do anything too major, other than going to the cinema and a couple of other bits and pieces. So and then when there's food or drink involved, it sort of gets engulfed in some of these other costs. So we only came to a total of 39 tracked on the entertainment side, but there's definitely a lot going on. We were just probably a little bit more reclusive this month compared to some of the others we've had. Transport costs were really low because like I said, we walked most places. There was a couple of times where we took a taxi, which as I mentioned in the intro, was about that 200 dinar to get across town, and we only really did that a few times. So because of the areas that we were staying, which I won't go into, if you're curious and you are coming to Skopje, leave a comment below and I'm happy to share more information on the location. But there are taxis absolutely everywhere. The thing that's not included in that $7 is we spent 800 when we left, which you'll see in our next video, and that was but that's not really included in that month, so to speak. That was to get to the airport. Finding a gym was a bit of an interesting one. There were a few options, but they were all a little bit on the grim side, which you sort of have to expect. We definitely expect as we travel. If we find a good gym, we're just absolutely stoked. This one wasn't that amazing and was fairly hot, and it's odd that they have different prices for males and females. No idea why. You also can't wear a singlet, as we'd call it, a vest for our UK friends. Yeah, weird, but it was fine. It's sort of all that I needed. So I paid 900 for the month, which is about $20 for the month. And then Stacey trained a couple of times just on one-off kind of things. Other times she just sort of went for a walk. So $23 in total. You got what you paid for. Mobile phones were very easy. There was a T-Mobile right next to us was the shopping mall. In that mall was T-Mobile. We spent $9 each, so $18 total, and that was for our 4G plans, which came with 5 gigabytes, as they say, 5 gigabytes of data, and really good speeds, like minimum of 5 meg down. So we never really had any problems with connection when it was up. We had a couple of on and off moments where data would sort of drop, but that was more about the overall network rather than, I think, our experience anyway. So wrapping that all up into one total was $1,638 for the month. Here's a bit of a recap on all of the other costs as well, so you can just kind of see how those made up and fed into it, and you can see that accommodation really was the thing that stung us. It always is, but yeah, it should have been at least $200 or $300 less had we picked up some of those bonuses. So we're really happy with the month that we had. But a couple of things that aren't in there that people always ask about is visas, which for us, North Macedonia was like, come on in, just however long you need almost. It's just completely flexible. Best to check your own country if you're considering it. Doesn't include a VPN, which we highly recommend, and I'll have a good link for that below for our recommendation. And travel insurance, which we pay upfront for the year, but I've got 2 great recommendations for companies that I'll link below as well, depending on if you're a long-term traveler or a short-term traveler, and or if you have expensive gear like we do. So part 3 is a comparison between Skopje, Bali, Krakow, Chiang Mai, and Zagreb. In terms of the total costs, Skopje actually came in second, and I think, again, accommodation is probably the biggest reason, because that should be $200 to $300 cheaper. Bali, the most expensive. You should definitely go and watch that video I did on Bali, because it's easy to think that it is the cheapest place in Asia and it's so perfect, but there are pros and cons to that. And Thailand, as you'll see when we look at a couple of the other categories here, is just so cheap across the board. In particular, accommodation, the quality that we got for a brand new apartment, although it was very small, was very high in Thailand, and you can see Skopje, highest of the 4, for reasons I keep repeating. Groceries was much higher in both Skopje and Zagreb. 1, it's Europe, and 2, I think we were, in fact, Krakow was right there as well, that we were buying groceries and cooking quite frequently. If you compare that to the 2 from Asia, it's cheaper to eat out in Asia, to be honest, than it is to cook at home. And in terms of dining out, that sort of comes through here. We spent less in Skopje because I think because we didn't eat out as frequently, like I mentioned, and the coffee wasn't great or to our tasting, so we didn't. Whereas places like Zagreb and Bali in particular, we ate out a lot more frequently, and we definitely had coffee out as well. So that kind of brings a wrap to everything. I've tried to split this into 3 parts. It's felt quite odd for me being used to doing it 10 times or 9 times one particular way and then trying to add value in other ways, but I'd love your feedback. As always, we love getting your comments, so feel free to leave any questions, comments, feedback, anything below, and yeah, I might take a couple of days to get back to you, but I'll be there.